Was Bonnie Parker a killer? Hi everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you enjoyed this video. This video will explore one of the mysteries of Bonnie Parker. That is, did Bonnie Parker ever kill anyone during her criminal career with Clyde Barrow? Or did Bonnie Parker ever fire a gun during any of their gun battles with lawmen? These two questions have been researched, discussed, and argued for decades. Thanks to Hollywood, there have been numerous myths about Bonnie being involved in murders. Hollywood has long featured Bonnie Parker as being a gun moll and shooting at police officers. Most recently, the movie The Highwaymen, starring Kevin Costner, portrayed Bonnie as being a cold-blooded killer. Even though movies are mostly fictional, especially when it comes to Bonnie and Clyde, these movies still have an effect on the minds of the public. For example, I have researched Bonnie and Clyde for decades. I have spoken with experts, and I have spoken with just regular people who have opinions of Bonnie and Clyde. There's a large portion of those people that believe that Bonnie was led astray and was really a victim of the times and circumstances. Then many others believe that she was directly involved in many murders and is just as guilty as Clyde Barrow or Henry Methvin. Also, thanks to newspapers of the time, reporters have contributed to the myths of Bonnie Parker. Newspapers portrayed Bonnie as a cigar-smoking gun moll. News reports of the time continually mentioned Bonnie's name along with Clyde whenever a lawman was kidnapped, murdered, or shot at. Every major gun battle with police, Bonnie was mentioned. Reports stated that eyewitnesses often told of a small female firing guns at the police officers in many of these battles. As history tells us today, we know that Clyde was primarily involved in the deaths of at least a few people, including lawmen. But actually, we do not know the exact number of men killed by Clyde himself. We only have an estimated account of murders by Clyde and or his associates, such as Henry Methvin and Raymond Hamilton. History suspects that the Barrow Gang was responsible for at least 12 murders. So how many killings was Bonnie directly involved in? We do know that a few of these murders, Bonnie wasn't even with Clyde, such as the Stringtown murder in Atoka, Oklahoma in August 1932. But what type of young woman was Bonnie? We certainly know that she loved writing poems about their adventures during her criminal career. Bonnie loved reading magazines about gangsters and movie stars. Bonnie with Clyde probably watched gangster movies in some small town theater at times. Her poems tell a lot about her. If you have never read Bonnie's poems, I suggest you do. The poems will tell you what that young girl was thinking and fantasizing about. In her poem Suicide Sound, she writes in the voice of a gun moll mixed up in the criminal underworld. Where did she get such gangster language? Probably in the magazines and maybe the movies of the time, too. In reading her poems, one gets the sense that Bonnie knew exactly what she had got herself involved in, and at least wasn't a victim as many believed. There are no eyewitnesses alive today to tell us if Bonnie ever killed anyone. So we have to rely on historical documents that carry the verbal statements of eyewitnesses. Of course, we know that eyewitnesses can be totally wrong or absolutely right. So in this video, I will attempt to answer the two questions above based on historical facts as we know today. I will base my research on 5 different events involving a shootout with Bonnie and Clyde. Let's investigate each one of these shootouts and let's try to determine if Bonnie had a direct part in firing upon lawmen and or killing a lawman. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Here are the 5 events that this video will cover. January 6, 1933 in Dallas, Texas. April 13, 1933 in Joplin, Missouri. July 20th, 1933 in Platte City, Missouri. July 24th, 1933 in Dexter, Iowa. And April 1st, 1934 in Grapevine, Texas. So the first event that I want to review occurred on January 6, 1933 in Dallas, Texas. This event will tell us a great deal about Bonnie's mindset. This incident had to do with the murder of Tarrant County Deputy Sheriff Malcolm Davis. I made a video on this complete story, so check out my YouTube channel for the video titled A Murder in Dallas, Clyde Barrow, released in September 2023. This first event is critical in reviewing Bonnie's determination to do whatever is necessary to survive. In this event, we have the statement of an eyewitness to Bonnie's actions. The eyewitness was William Daniel Jones, a member of the Barrow Gang. To summarize this event, Deputy Davis and other lawmen were at the house of Raymond Hamilton's sister, Lily McBride. The house was located in West Dallas. The officers were laying a trap for Odell Chambliss, a known bank robber and friend of Clyde's. When officers went to the house, Odell was not there, so they decided to wait in secret. About midnight, a car approached the house, then drove away to return a few minutes later. After the car parked on the second time, Clyde walked up to the front porch of the house. Clyde had a sawed-off shotgun with him. As Clyde approached the front door, he saw officers through a front window waiting inside. Clyde fired his shotgun through the window. Deputy Davis was at the rear of the house and heard the shot. He ran alongside the house toward the front porch. As he jumped on the front porch, Clyde fired his shotgun at Davis, mortally wounding him. Clyde ran back to the car while officers were firing at him. Gunfire was also coming from the car, back toward the officers. In November 1933, William Daniel Jones was arrested in Houston after leaving the Barrow Gang. He gave a statement to Dallas officers that Bonnie fired a revolver toward officers that January 6th night in Dallas while he started the car and waited for Clyde to jump in. Jones stated that he could not tell if Bonnie wounded or killed any of the officers. Today, we know that only Davis was killed that night, and no other officers were wounded. So, if Jones' story is true, Bonnie definitely fired at officers that fateful night. However, many years later, when he reflected on adventures with Bonnie and Clyde, WD failed to mention in this event that Bonnie did fire multiple times toward officers. But then again, he failed to mention the times he used a gun against officers and a defenseless lady in Wellington, Texas. By the way, this is Clyde's only murder that he confessed to his family. The next shootout that we will discuss happened on April 13th, 1933 in Joplin, Missouri. Clyde, Bonnie, W.D. Jones, Buck Barrow, Blanche Barrow all stayed at a garage apartment for a few nights until one afternoon several lawmen came to the apartment to investigate the report of bootleggers or robbers in the apartment. A gun battle erupted, resulting in 2 police officers murdered. Again, we have one eyewitness testimony about Bonnie's actions that day. But this time, the eyewitness is Bonnie herself. There's no countering this eyewitness statement. Of course, whenever they could, Bonnie and Clyde would go back to Dallas area and meet up with their family members. During one visit, just after the Joplin shootout, Bonnie told the story of during the shootout, she fired at a police officer through a second-story window. Before she could fire any more rounds, bullets began to fly into the window where she was at. This story was recorded for written history by Clyde's sister, Nell. Again, this is testimony that no one can dispute. The third shootout that we will research happened on July 20th, 1933 in Platte City, Missouri, at the Red Crown Tavern and Tourist Cabins. Local citizens became suspicious of the Gang of Five and alerted local lawmen. The local police had already been alerted to watch for the Barrel Gang. Clyde, Bonnie, W.D. Jones, Buck, and Blanche rented 2 cabins at the tourist camp. The local sheriff, Holt Coffey, called for help from neighboring Kansas City lawmen. The police set their plan in motion to attack the 2 cabins. They even brought in an armored car from Kansas City. As the lawmen called for the Barrel Gang to surrender, an intense gun battle erupted. Clyde and Buck immediately started firing their automatic weapons toward the officers. As Clyde readied their getaway car, Buck was seriously wounded by the flying bullets. As Blanche was helping Buck get into the getaway car, gunfire shattered the glass and several glass particles went into Blanche's eyes, severely injuring one eye. There were serious injuries on both sides, with lawmen being hit by gunfire and Buck and Blanche being injured too. It was later reported by one of the lawmen that Blanche was observed carrying 2 handguns, one in each hand, while she was running from the cabin to the awaiting getaway car. She would later be charged with assault with intent to kill. Here's my thoughts about that witness report. 1, it is true that Blanche knew nothing about firearms and was said to be totally afraid of guns. 2, Buck had a serious head wound and Blanche had her hands full just trying to lead Buck to the getaway car. In my honest opinion, the report of Blanche carrying firearms for the gang is totally unbelievable. So, what about Bonnie? What were her actions during this gun battle? During their many months together, Clyde taught Bonnie how to shoot and how to handle firearms, including the most powerful Browning automatic rifle. However, here is one fact that totally changed Bonnie's involvement in the Platte City shootout. On June 10th, 1933, Bonnie, Clyde, and W.D. Jones were traveling at fast speeds near the town of Wellington, Texas. Unbeknown to them, the bridge over the Red River was closed. As Clyde approached the bridge out sign, he was going too fast and swerved to miss going on the closed bridge. The car that the trio was in crashed into a roadside ditch along a dry riverbed. When the car came to a rest, Bonnie was pinned in the car and battery acid was leaking onto Bonnie's leg, causing painful acid burns. The car also caught fire, which burned Bonnie before they could remove her from the car. After the car wreck, Bonnie suffered from these burns for months. For the first few months after the wreck, Bonnie could not even walk. Clyde carried her during this time. Roughly 5 weeks later, they were involved in the Platte City gun battle. Bonnie was not even walking on her own, yet much less being able to fire a shotgun or automatic weapon as reported by lawmen. So clearly Bonnie was not involved in this battle at all. Clyde, W.D., and Buck did all the shooting during this gun battle. Even Blanche Barrel, in her memoirs, confirmed these 3 men did all the firing toward the officers. The next event took place on July 24th, 1933 in Dexter, Iowa. Being on the run from the Platte City lawmen and driving as fast as he could, Clyde drove the gang to the Dexter, Iowa area. They camped out there near an old abandoned amusement park. They were close enough to the small town of Dexter to obtain medical supplies and to take out dinners. On July 24, 1933, local lawmen, perhaps 15 or so, formed a posse to investigate sightings of a group of gangsters hiding in the old campground. So here's a summary of how things were at the camp. Clyde and W.D. Jones were in fairly good shape. Bonnie was still suffering from her burns from the automobile accident and could walk for short distances only. Buck had a serious bullet wound from the Platte City shootout. Blanche had glass fragments in her eyes, so seeing was difficult for her. This gang was in really bad shape. In addition to the medical issues, many don't realize the other situation they were in. Here was a pending ambush by a posse of lawmen, and the gang only had, in some reports, one pistol, no other firearms. At Platte City, they were so surprised by the ambush, they did not have time to gather their firearms and place them in the getaway car. So now they were in a situation where they could not even defend themselves. Soon the Dexter posse was at the campsite. Clyde and W.D. noticed the lawman about the same time that the lawman observed the gang. The lawman opened fire with numerous firearms, including Thompson submachine guns. When the posse began firing, the scene at the camp was chaotic. Buck could not move, even with Blanche's help. Clyde had no choice but to get Bonnie away from the posse with W.D.'s help. Eventually, Blanche and Buck were captured. However, Clyde, Bonnie, and W.D. escaped. Here again, Bonnie was not able to fire a gun at any of the posse members, even if she had wanted to. She was totally disabled, and besides, there were no extra firearms available. Her main objective was to get away safely with Clyde and W.D. In this event, there was absolutely no evidence that Bonnie tried to kill any of the posse members. April 1st, 1934, in Grapevine, Texas. This next and last event really isn't a shootout. There were no gun battles between Bonnie and Clyde and lawmen during this event. However, this event may have been the most damaging toward Bonnie's reputation. This event happened on Easter Sunday, April 1st, 1934, near Grapevine, Texas. On that morning, about 10 a.m., Clyde parked his Ford on top of a hill on Dove Road. They were waiting to meet someone, or possibly waiting to meet their family. Along with Bonnie and Clyde was Henry Methvin, who had been broken out of a Texas prison by Clyde the previous January. Also, Bonnie had a rabbit that she was going to give to her mother as an Easter present. Soon, 2 Texas Highway patrolmen noticed the parked car, thinking it may be having motor issues. So they drove up to the Ford. As soon as the 2 officers were off of their motorcycles, Clyde and Henry opened fire upon them. The officers had no idea that they were approaching the Barrel Gang. They did not even have their guns drawn from their holsters. Both officers died at the scene. An eyewitness claimed he saw a man and a woman kill the officers. Later, he picked Bonnie and Clyde as the killers. Of course, his testimony would change and be questioned intensely for decades. But here's the most important takeaway from this incident. Initially, Bonnie and Clyde were blamed for the senseless killing of 2 very young Texas Highway patrolmen. This incident may have been the tipping point that drew the public support away from the couple. After the killings, newspaper stories came out telling how young the officers were, and one of the officers was just days away from getting married. The public, who had once supported Bonnie and Clyde for being a loving couple, now turned against them. It wasn't only these 2 murders, but recently other lawmen that had been killed, supposedly by Bonnie and Clyde. The public was still intrigued by their escapades, but not in a supportive way as in the past couple of years. Newspapers wasted no time condemning both Clyde and Bonnie with being cold-blooded murderers. So going back to my original two questions, did Bonnie Parker ever kill anyone during her criminal career with Clyde Barrow? Or did Bonnie Parker ever fire a gun during any of their gun battles with lawmen? Can we honestly answer these questions with some satisfaction of confidence? I believe we can. Bonnie Parker never killed anyone. Yes, she did on a couple of occasions fire a weapon toward officers, but not even wounding anyone. You may agree with my findings or you may disagree. Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm really interested in knowing your thoughts and opinions. I really hope that you have enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Also visit my Facebook page for more true and original stories. Thank you so much for watching.